Hello everyone. Welcome to our fourth seminar of Gender and Power in Asia. How are you today? Did you have a good weekend? I hope you had a very good weekend and ready to learn more about gender in Asia. So let's get started. So far, what we have been doing so far is to have looked at gender as a social cultural perception of behaviors, acts, and bodily performances, particularly as articulated by people like Judith Butler, who we talked about on week 1. And a gender as used to define biological genders, and a gender as made popular by feminists and activists challenging gender inequalities. So in other words, the concept of gender like masculinity and femininity have been seen naturalized in everyday lives of most of us, while they are often used to sustain inequalities for certain group of people, notably women and sexual minorities. So the concept of gender have been used to create such inequalities, but also can be used to challenge and subvert these very inequalities. That's what we've been talking about for the past few weeks. So what we're going to do today is to look at the concept of transgender and a third gender. So first we'll revisit and reconsider the idea of gender as a socio-culturally assigned performance by looking particularly at Indonesia's Bugis people, who you are familiar with by now through the readings for this week. And for Bugis people, gender is not only a social culture performance, but it's made up of various factors. So a question that we can ask, for example, is, does this challenge in a way the idea of Butler and her idea of gender as performance that we discussed in week 1? And does that mean binary gender like masculinity and femininity may not be so rigidly defined or supported in some parts of Asia? So these are what we are going to look at and try to find some answers to these questions today. So let's get started with this simple and quick question. Are a third gender and transgender different? And if so, how? And this is a question that is addressed in one of the readings for this week, the transcendent Bisu. So what do you think? What are your answers? Okay, I hope we've got like some interesting answers from you. So while it is difficult to talk about the difference between the two, third gender and transgender, a transgender often implies a crossing from one gender to the next, while the use of third gender is a way to try to frame a separate and legitimate space for individuals who want to be considered outside this binary. And also, a contemporary transgenderism entails identification with a gender that does not coincide with one's sex-differentiated body. Okay? And this idea is very well represented in Bugis community in Indonesia that our reading for this week focus on. So Bugis community is in South Sulawesi, which is an island in Indonesia. And the Bugis community is an ethnic group in the southwestern province of Sulawesi Island. And they are sometimes called Makassans. So can you spot a Makassar in the map here? That's where they are. So where's Makassar? Can you see? Yes, it's at the bottom. Okay, that's where Bugis community is located. So what I'm going to do now is to show you, or let's watch it like a very short clip about Bugis community and their conception of genders. It's a very short video, and it will help us to have like a clearer and a more vivid picture of who they are and what they like. Okay, so here we go. Okay, so I hope you enjoyed the video. As the video and the ratings indicate, in Bugis community, there are not only like two binary genders, masculinity or femininity, or like men and women, but also there are three other genders in this community. And this can be a little bit confusing, so let's have a look at them to make sure that we understand them. The first group is Kalabai, who are individuals with biologically made male bodies who identify and behave in a conventionally feminine way. And then they have Kalalai, who are individuals with biologically female bodies who identify and behave in a conventionally masculine way. And then they have Bisu, who are like priest or priestess-like individuals with all aspects of gender being combined to form a whole and perfect identity. So they are neither considered women nor men, but a powerful combination of both, and that's Bisu. Okay, so there are three other genders in Bugis community other than male and female. Okay. So what I'm going to do now is to hand over to Olive, and so you can do a number of questions and activities. So we'll start with three reading questions, like questions that refer to our readings for this week. Then we'll have a number of activities, including like why, to understand more about why transgender people, multiple gender people are often perceived in many cultures as like a problem, and how feminists or like a group of feminists perceive transgender people. And then we'll have a number of activities that help us understand more about the Bugis community and their perceptions of gender, particularly in relation to the idea of gender performativity that we've talked about for the past few weeks. Okay, so I'll hand over to Olive now. So I hope you enjoy the activities. I'll back at the end of this today's seminar to talk a little bit about what we're going to do next week and a week after. Okay, so enjoy your activities and questions. And now I'm fast forwarding the slides to get to the end. Okay, so I'm sorry that like you can't see the whole slide, but I'm sure you can have it in your class. But as you all know, your first written assignment is due Friday next week, which is the 4th of December. And it's going to be 1,000 word and short written piece, and plus minus 10% rules apply. So it's your short assignment should be either 900 words to 1,100 words, excluding reference list. And you need to reference everything that you use in your assignment, even if it's not an essay. And I want you to double or 1.5 space your work and ensure their page numbers. And make sure you reference your work correctly, including a reference list at the end of your written work. And remember that you need to use at least 3 sources to support your review of the movie Shinjuku Boys. And if you want to use like more than 3, feel free to use other sources. Yes? And the most important thing is I don't want you to retell the story of the film. So I want you to keep the summary of the movie in 1 paragraph and focus on your critical analysis of the film in relation to the ideas of gender. So you don't need to talk about everything, but I want you to identify 1 or 2 points about gender that you find really interesting in the film and focus your analysis on these 2 points. Okay? And please submit your essay, not essay, the first assignment on LMS in the section of assessment submission. Okay? So I really hope you enjoy the film and hope this assignment will help you understand more about or to think more critically about the idea of gender. And the next week is a public holiday in Hong Kong, so there will be no physical class. But you are expected to work and complete your first written assignment, the review of Shinjuku Boys, and submit on LMS. And if you have any questions, then don't hesitate to email me or Olive if you have any questions, okay? And a week after, on week 6, we are going to look at 2 prominent aspects of marriage in contemporary Asia. The first one is the trend for women to delay marriage, particularly in places like South Korea, Japan, and obviously Hong Kong and Singapore. And the second point is Taiwan becoming the first Asian nation to have legalized same-sex marriage. So what is the significance of women delaying their marriage in Asia? And how do they negotiate ideals and practices, as marriage and childbearing remain key markers of contemporary womanhood, including places like Japan, but also in some other Asian countries? And how do the institutions of state and the government respond to the demand of same-sex marriage? And how do traditional values in Asia, such as the case of China and Taiwan, influence the people's conceptions of equality of marriage? And this is particularly introduced in one of the readings for week 6 about Chinese values and its relationship with marriage. So the question that we can ask for this week, for that week, is: can wishing to stay single or to get married reveal a sense of agency? Okay? So I really hope you enjoy the film Shinjuku Boys and your first assignment, and see you in 2 weeks' time. Bye.